Okay, so here's another few examples with algebra. So I have these three angles that form the straight angle. I want to find the measure of z. So I know that this angle here is defined by the expression 4z minus 10, and this angle here is defined by the expression z. Okay, so there's two ways to do this. You can either think about the straight angle, and I have these three angles that make the straight angle, so I could add those three angles. And we know that the straight angle is 180. Okay. And then you would solve this. Or you can do, we know that if this is 90, I have this half of this angle would also be 90 degrees, okay, because 90 and 90 equals 180. And so I could just do 4z minus 10 plus z equals 90. Doesn't matter either way. And then you would solve these. So it really doesn't matter which way you do this. If this one, you would do 90 minus 10, which is 80. So, and then I have 4z plus z, which is 5z. So I'd have 5z plus 80 equals 180. I'm going to subtract 80 from both sides. I get 5z equals 100. And then I'm going to divide 100 by 5, and I get z equals 20. Okay. Or this one, I would have 5z minus 10. Okay. This is a z, just remember, equals 90. I would add 90, so I have 5z equals 100. Divide by 5, and I have z equals 20. So that's the same thing. So this one is exactly the same. You can set it up either way. You may want to pause and try it and then see if you get the same answer that I do. But again, the one setup is these three angles make 180. So I could do 9x plus 4 plus 32 plus 90 equals 180. Okay, or I know that these two angles are just 90 because the other part is 90. And again, we know that because this box means that it's 90 degrees. So I could do 9x plus 4 plus 32 equals 90. Okay, and you can solve either one. So we get 9x plus 36 equals 90. Okay, we subtract 36 from both sides, and we get 9x equals 54. And then divide by 9, and we get x equals 6. And if you solve this one, you should get the same thing as well. Yeah, I'll just solve it, and then you can check your work if you paused. Okay, so that's how you do these if you have a straight angle and one part of it is 90 degrees. So for a few more practice problems with algebra, we want to find the variables x here. And this one, it's going to change this a little. This should probably be 7y plus 3. Okay, and we'll leave this one as 4x plus 1. They should be different variables because I don't think they'll come out as the same. Okay. So let's start with the 4x plus 1. So we have 4x plus 1, we have 65. If we think about them and think, okay, what is the relationship between these two angles? Well, they're across from each other, which means they're vertical. Okay. So this angle and this angle are vertical. If they're vertical, we know that they're congruent or that they have equal measures. And so that means we can set them equal to each other. And then we can solve. So we subtract 1 from both sides and we get 64. And then we divide by 4 and we get x equals 16. So that gives me this x. Then I want to find what y is. Okay, these problems should say find the variables. Okay, so you kind of have two options again. You could, again, you want to relate it to like the 65. You can't do anything initially with like the 4x plus 1 and the 7y plus 3 because they're two different variables and you can't solve it when you just have one equation and two variables. So you would have to find x first if you wanted to use this angle here. But since we have an angle measure of 65, we can just use that. And the one way we could do it is we could say, okay, here, those two angles are supplements of each other, they're supplementary. They form this straight angle. And so therefore we know that 7y plus 3 plus 65, those two angles together, have to give me 180 degrees because they form that straight angle. Okay? And then I could solve it. So I'd get 7y plus 68 equals 180. We're going to subtract 68 from both sides. And we get 7y equals 112. And then we divide by 7 and y equals 16. Okay, so I guess they could have been because you would have gotten the same variable for x. But I just wanted to show you if these were different variables, how to do it. The other way you could do it is you could just like find this angle measure here by doing 180 minus 65, which is 115, because these angles are supplementary. And then you could also just like set 7y plus 3 equal to 115. And if you do that, you get 7y equals 112 and y equals 16. So that's just the second way to do it. Either way is fine. And so that's question 5. And then question 6, we want to find the variables. So we want to find y. Okay, we know this is 90. And so these two angles together make this angle, which is vertical to the 90. So this is also 90, those two angles together. So these here are 90 degrees. And so therefore, if we put them together, which means we add them, they have to equal 90 degrees. And so we have 10y equals 90 and y equals 9. Okay. So I would pause and try this problem first and then resume the video and see if you get them right. But this is just kind of assessing your knowledge of the different measurements and the names of the angles, and it's asking true or false. So the first one, 7, says measure of angle 1 and 2 are vertical angles. Okay, so here's 1, here's 2. Well, they're not across from each other. They're the next to each other and they form a straight angle or straight line. So they're definitely not vertical angles. They're actually supplementary angles. Okay, so 8 says 2 and 3. Okay, so if I look at 2 and 3, well, those two form this line. And if two angles form a line, then that means they add up to 180, and adding up to 180 means that they are supplementary. So this one is true. Okay, 9 says measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 3. So we have to think about what type of angles they are. Okay, well, 1 and 3 are across from each other, which means they're vertical. And if they're vertical, we know that they are equal. So that is all. This one is true as well. So 10 says 3 and 4 add up to 180. And again, 3 and 4 make up the straight angle. Straight angle means that they add up to 180. So yes, this is true. Okay, 11 says 1 and 3 add up to 180. Well, we already said 1 and 3 are vertical, which means they have to be equal. And if they're equal, they are not going to add up 180 unless they're both 90, which we don't know. So this is false. And then this last one, 4 and 2 are adjacent angles. So we have not have defined adjacent yet. So let's define that. So adjacent angles are two angles that share a common side and vertex. Okay. So this is the vertex here. A vertex of an angle is where the two sides of the angle come together. And so if two angles like this share a side and share this common vertex, then they are adjacent angles. So if I look at 4 and 2, well, angle 4 is made by this side and this side. And angle 2 is made by this ray and this ray. And so they don't share a side. Not one of these rays doesn't make up both of these angles. And so these are not adjacent. If they're vertical, they're not adjacent. But an example of adjacent would be like angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. Okay, because they share this vertex. All of these angles share the same vertex. So that part is satisfied, but they also have to share a common side, and 1 and 2 share this common side, okay, which 2 and 4 do not. Okay, so that is all the additional practice on the angles. If you have any questions, please let me know.